job of frying the eggs. Let's turn that light on over the stove. There.
You want to see the eggs right in the skillet?
We want to see the eggs.
Over easy?
Over easy, that's the way we like it.
Raining this morning.
What?
Yeah, cold rain. Good thing we was off yesterday.
No, I have fog down. It's raining.
Yeah.
I'm washing it all night.
After you get hurt, swing it around and take a picture of a new couch.
Good morning.
Morning.
You want me to salt your eggs while we're in the skillet?
Sure.
Look at their new couch. Walk over a little
Boy,
closer. Boy, we went uptown to that.
I guess so.
We got new drapes in the living room.
Yeah, new
We'll
drapes.
check out the new drapes. Get this date off of here so it doesn't show all the time.
Yeah.
There we go. Well, it's after Christmas.
You want your eggs soft?
Oh yeah, always soft.
Have Dwain tell you about playing golf yesterday.
That was really hot yesterday. 4 birdies, 1 bogey for a brilliant 51. He's the first round leader.
Lucky, like that fellow we played with said that he'd rather be lucky than good anytime.
That's right. But first round leader, and we'll have to play 2 or 3 more rounds and see if you can hold. You know, the guy that leads the first day doesn't always win the tournament.
He's got a better chance than others. Well, I tell you, that time there'd just be one certain fella to stay all 4 days. Boy, that is something.
Well, you know, Tom Watson did that in this tournament that we're going to show on tape. That he led from the first day on.
Yeah. But he was a weak team the last 3 or 4 holes. If he'd had another to go, I think he'd have blowed square up.
You didn't see it,
Well, we read about it.
Yeah, well, we're going to see it just.
Do we thank you for the protection through the night and for this morning? Be with us, guide over us through the day, and protect us and give us help. We ask at 9 a.m.
Looks like it's good enough to eat, Alice.
Grapefruit, potatoes, and eggs, and bacon. That sounds like
That's living.
that sounds like a retired fellow's.
Oh, you buttered it?
No.
When you buttered, or come you?
You want?
What?
What do you got? Just the way you want it?
Well, yeah.
Now, what is you want to know? Something about the family?
Well, I thought we'd talk about the past as well as the future, but we'll start with your ancestors. I remember, of course, Grandpa Horn and Sig. How did they ever happen to come to Moulton? Do you remember?
Well, they was born down there where I used to live, where you boys was born.
Oh, their folks lived there?
Their folks lived in the Barnes place right west there that I finally bought, the Nelson place.
Oh, it was called the Nelson place, yeah.
It was earlier called the Barnes place, and they were all the kids were born there.
What were their parents' names? I mean, your grandpa.
Yeah.
What was your grandpa?
Well, he was struck by lightning when Dad was 8 years old, and his name was
Kirby raised him.
Sam Kirby raised him.
Raised my grandpa?
Yeah, and his dad was, gosh, I can't think of it. It's a common name. I'll think of it maybe after bed.
Well, then what happened to your grandmother?
My grandmother?
Yeah.
Well, I don't think I know that. I just
Was she
What?
dead before you?
Oh yeah, I never did know. I never did know her.
Well, and you said my grandpa then was raised by
Sam Kirby, which lived over south, right back where Lester Kirby lived.
Yeah.
Right back of him there, and raised him. And when he's 18, he and his brother Rob, which had been living in Missouri, just working down in Seymour, Missouri, they met and went out west and homesteaded.
Well, yeah, I know that story now, that they went out by Napanee, and that's where he met Grandma.
Grandma lived the next door neighbor, and
Yeah.
and she come up to clean the sod house for him each week, and
I see.
that's how that took place.
But Grandpa then he was really an orphan. If his dad was struck by lightning,
Yeah. And
you don't know what.
Where was Sig living when your father lived with Sam?
well, he got married and he kind of got started.
Oh, was he that much older?
Yeah, he was about 10 years older, and he got a place, a little place, just had 40 acres where Roy Nestle lived.
Oh yeah.
And then he added to it. He was probably the thriftiest one of the Horn family.
Well, then were there any other brothers and sisters?
Yeah, there was an Ike Horn that he went out to Washington State, and I don't think he homesteaded, but he got in the fruit business in Washington State.
Oh.
And then later come back to Kansas to live. Some of his kids did. So that's kind of took care of them. See, there's the 4 boys. Then Aunt Lizy lived in
Well, wait a minute. Who was the fourth one? Oh,
Rob
Rob and Ike.
Ike and Dad and Uncle Sig and Aunt Lizy.
Were they all 4 brothers?
Huh?
Were
Yeah,
they-
they were, no.
That's right.
Rob and Ike was half brother to him.
To Sig and Sidney.
By what? Who's
Well,
their
now,
mother remarried after your dad? or
Evidently,
grandpa?
that's what happened after his dad was, because they were younger by then. We didn't know him very well. We visited him a time or two, even after Alice and I was married. We visited the descendants up and down in Missouri. They was at Sedalia. And then, see, Dad stayed out there. They built a soddy house. Raymond and Floyd was born in the soddy house.
Yeah.
They lived in it. And after when I was coming along, my dad built a little house, just 2 room. And they tore the sod house down, and I was born in the little
2-room house.
2-room house, which is part of the house that stands there now. They added to it, Lord now. And when I was a month old, they'd had 2 years of drought. They just hadn't got anything, raised anything. And Dad had brought all he had was a good team of horses. And I didn't know their names, Joe and Jack, that was it. And so they decided they'd come back to Iowa. And I was just a month old the day they started. And the way they come to Iowa, this is the unusual thing. They rented a boxcar. You know what a boxcar is?
Oh,
On the
yeah.
train.
On the
How
railroad.
long there?
Yeah.
The horses and the hay was put in one end. The furniture was put in the center, and the rest we lived in it, the beds and such as that, and rode 4 days of coming from
4 days.
4 days.
The trains were even slower then than they are now.
They laid over in St. Joe, Missouri for 13 hours. I've heard this story so many times, waiting to get connected right. Well, they come.
But then that train went right up to Moulton.
Right up to Moulton. Yeah,
I'll be
I'll
darned.
forget. Of course, then they had,
Yeah, the Wabash and the
Wabash and the CB&Q. And there was 3 that could come through. They come on the Wabash, and if you wanted to get on the Wabash, see, they come through Sedan, up that way.
Oh, well, that was
Coming
the
to-
Wabash coming
The
through.
Wabash went north and south.
Yeah.
CB&Q went the other way.
Oh, yeah.
And so they come right up that way. So then they didn't have nowhere to live, and they went out and lived with Uncle Sig for a while in a little house, all of us.
Out there where Uncle Sig used to live,
Yeah.
east of town.
East of town.
Yeah.
And Dad got looking around, and of course he thought it'd be nice if he could buy something close to where he was born, but they couldn't. And they bought the next house east, which old Jakey Stover owned that. And they bought it, him, and it was just 120 acres, and he never could buy anything around it. I mean, the only thing he ever bought that touched it was what they call a racker for you. You remember
Yeah,
that?
way back
Way
off of the
back
corner.
in the corner. Was a
Steep hills.
miles from nowhere. And that's why I scolded Joseph at for here he had 355 acres all together.
Yeah.
And had it all together and started just piecemealing it out. But that's a different story. But then, of course, after I bought the place, Dad finally bought the 60 down to Ray Tharp, so I had to run back and forth.
That's the place we called Egypt.
Yeah. And
Why did he call that
well,
Egypt?
it was so cuckleberry and so poor. That was the poorest land, and rocks. We picked up rocks day after day down there. Cut sprouts. There's more work done on that 60 acres than there was on the whole farm.
Oh, really?
So then I run it on the shares after I got married. After your mother and I got married, we run it on the shares for, well, I guess I bought it in about 3 years, something like that. And then I was lucky to get to buy that old poor Barnes place, put with it,
Yeah.
and I bought the Heisen place.
Well, now, when did Grandpa and Grandma move up to the place east of Moulton?
1918. I started to school at the 8th grade in the fall of 1918, and that was because we moved up there.
You went to the 8th grade in Moulton?
In Moulton.
Oh.
I tried, you had to write 8th grade examinations, you know, in the country school.
Yeah.
And I got, and the first time you used to take 7 studies, and I wasn't too sharp. And I passed 4 of them. Then I went to Bloomfield and took them in the office. They could do that, and I passed 2 more. That made 6, but I liked 1. So when we moved up there, I was so full of it, we could have tried 1 time more, and so just went to 8th grade.
My God.
So that made me a little bit older.
That's one way of escaping 8th grade examination.
8th grade examination. And that helped me playing football. I was a little more matured than the rest
Oh,
of the
yeah,
class.
yeah.
And so that was, and we graduated from there in 1925.
So you went the first 7 years, though, to the old Taylor
Yeah.
school, same school then that we went to.
Yeah. That was it. And the schoolhouse looked a lot like, the only thing after that, we put that porch on to hang your clothes, or that people did, and they stuccoed. I had it one time, Kelly Forsyth fixed it all up. Oh, it just looked like new building, it was stuccoed, and they put a new roof on it, so it was pretty nice. The time Miss Escapade Orm and I had, he was the first years in school, and you didn't, no, second year, the second years in school. First year, and the teacher the first year was Zelda Rowe, and the second year was Maud, cousin Maud Tweedy.
Okay, now, how was Maud your cousin?
Yeah.
She was Sig's daughter.
Yeah, Sig,
Okay.
Sig had 2 girls and a boy.
And that Estel was the other.
Yeah.
And who was the son?
Fred.
Oh, yeah,
Old
yeah,
Fred.
Fred. Oh, Fred.
Old Fred.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of the way it's at. And the horns, when I started writing insurance, I had more trouble trying to write insurance for the horns than any other people. Why, Fred Horn, until his barn got a fire and he didn't have the right insurance on it and didn't get paid, then he let me write it.
Well, now, how were we related to the Horns, like Kenneth and Kermit and Buell and the
Dad
people?
and him was cousins, so it made us second cousins. Printed all the Horns around Moulton are related. Now, like this summer in there to coffee, we had 6 different Horns, and I said to him, I said, I bet you that we're all related if we wanted to admit it.
Some of them wouldn't admit it.
Some of them wouldn't admit it. See, there was Don Horn, and Fred Horn, and Kermit Horn, and me, and there was another Horn in there.
Donald Horn.
No, the Horn that his mother got
Donald
bit
Horn.
with a dog. No, I said Donald Horn.
Oh, Madge Horn.
Yeah, Madge Horn. Billy Horn.
His name was Raymond. His
Yeah.
father was Raymond.
Well, do you think we're related to Donald Horn?
Oh, we related all of it. And, you know, I told you the story of the Horns from up at La Villa was related, and they'd come down to Horn reunion, and we played with them as kids. Well, when Raymond come down there the first time, he kept track of them, and he knew that they run a play
Horn's cars of
yesterday over at Sarasota.
Oh, I remember that story.
Yeah, he wanted to go over, and we went over there, and we got to see this Ed Horn, which would have been about a second cousin or something. And after we told him what we wanted to do, he said, well, I'm sure we're no relation at all, but here's 2 tickets you can get in there and sing. I said, Raymond, we saved $4 anyhow.
The relationship was worth $4.
$4. That was about it. So that's the way it went. But there was a lot of Horns back then. When I was in high school, we had a fellow, is before Moulton got the waterworks, and they clean out privies, you know.
Oh, yeah.
And his name was Tom Horn. He had a daughter was named Frances Horn, and she was in my class. And of course the kids would kid me about it, we were related. Well, then I wouldn't admit it at all. My God, it just set me afire. But now I'm sure it was something
Yeah,
else.
well, you know, remember in mine and Joe's class, there were 4 Horns, because
Yeah.
there was Freddie Dale and that Charles Horn.
Yeah. And Charles Horn, Charles' dad,
That was
Charles'
Luther.
granddad, and dad was first cousin.
Oh, I see.
So of course that gets down a long way.
Yeah, but his dad was Luther.
Yeah.
So
his
you and
dad,
Luther were second.
the second cousin.
I see.
And his dad was Andy, hardest working man. We always said that surely he was no relation because he was a horn that liked to work. So everyone would say, yeah, he had relation.
Always went by his initials, A.J. Horn.
A.J. Horn.
Well, old Luther worked a little, didn't he, up at the post office? Didn't he used to run the post office?
Yeah, he ran the post office, but that isn't no work. They sat on their fanny. Well, look at Jack Fowler, fat as a hog, by God. Can't even walk. When he got the job, he walked up there 3 blocks, and now he can't even walk 3 blocks.
Well, did he retire? Yeah.
No,
retired.
no, that's Jack Howard.
Oh, yeah, Jack Howard.
Good, so that's kind of the way they go.
Well, I remember when we started to school down there, we used to ride horses occasionally over to the country school. There was quite a bit of land there at that school. I suppose Marvin ended up with that.
No, that went back to the land it was from, which was off of the Spurgeon farm.
Oh, north there, yeah.
Yeah, north of that. Yeah, there was about 4 acres.
Yeah, that big area down below.
Marvin Stevenson this summer had.
Excuse me, I gotta get to work.
Marvin Stevenson this summer talked 2 different times about. I remember when we used to in the fall crack walnuts. Go down there. Walnuts would be just as green and juicy, and you'd crack them and pick them out. You know, get your hands all stained and like that. And we used to eat. And I expect you kids did do these halls, red halls, and you know we'd go through a timber there. Maybe you kids didn't much, but when we was kids, we'd cut right south of the schoolhouse, and it was a quarter of a mile of just solid timber.
Well, I think somebody cleared that off pretty well by the time Joe and I were going. We'd cut through there because we used to set traps up there behind that old cemetery.
And the same thing. Caught skunks, went to school, and sent home because you stunk so bad.
Yeah, but that timber was cleared off by the time.
I don't think it was too much. There's some cleared off, but it's still timber.
Oh, really?
It's still. I went by there this summer, and now it isn't as thick as it was then, but no one's ever cleaned it off. It's just like the schoolhouse land up there that away. It's worse now, the timber than it ever was.
Oh, really?
Oh, just terrible. And Cordy Stevenson's got it, and these multi-flower roses come up in it.
Oh, yeah.
And the cows can't hardly walk in that timber. Now, the 40 acres to the east is a nice pasture.
Speaking of that timber, did they clear that timber over there by the Heisel place? You remember the land
That's
that
the
lay
one I'm talking about.
north of the Heisel place?
That's the one I'm talking about. That's the one Cordy Stevenson's got.
Oh, yeah. Well, now that wasn't due south of the schoolhouse.
I said south. The one we're first to talk about was right south of the schoolhouse.
Yeah.
This is southwest, down around Shorts.
By the creek, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that was always a dense timber. Yeah.
And they went in there and took the walnut trees out, and outside of that, that's about all they've done to that. And I feel so sorry for Cordy because she takes her cattle over there and she can't find them. And Cordy's had an awful time since her husband died a long time ago.
Yeah,
You know, those boys went wild as Missouri mules.
Oh, they did?
Oh, the worst kind. One of them was a car wreck, and he has to be in a wheelchair all the time now. But he's got a job. He can do the job as senator.
Now, which one's that?
Oh, I can't remember the names. Maybe Alice, but I don't think so. But he had it around right up there where Dad's road hit the main road. He didn't turn. You know, you make a little turn there.
Oh, yeah.
He just went out straight and turned the car over on him and stayed all night under the car. They didn't find him until someone was coming to Sunday school the next morning.
My God.
And he was in awful shape. They didn't think he'd live for a long time. So she's had a lot of things, and she's an ill-natured woman anyhow. So put 'em all.
She's had a tough life.
Yeah.
I remember we used to ride the horse the first year we were in high school in Moulton when we still lived down on the old farm.
Yeah.
Occasionally we'd leave the car, if the roads were muddy, we'd leave the car up there to Roy and Estel's, and we'd ride the horses then down through there and then tie the horses up when we got up to Roy and Estel's.
Well, I done that selling insurance for about 5, 6 years. I'd leave my car at Roy and Estel and ride my horse up and put it in their barn, and then I'd just come down over the hill and you could be home in no time flat, you know.
Yeah. Boy, I remember the big challenge, though, was that what we called the bar hill.
I've been stuck on that both ways.
That thing is, have they ever cut that down in here?
Oh, yeah. It's a lot better. But you see, right then, about that time, I was trying to get the county to cut that road to come across, miss the top of the bar.
Yeah, just cut the corner.
Yeah, just cut the corner big. And they finally agreed to it, Sig would give the land. So we all met over there, the county board and Uncle Sig. And we showed them how we wanted to just make a big round and corner and then cut off part of the hill. Siggy's oh so independent, so tight. He just stood there a little bit and he said, well, I would give you the land if I thought it'd do any good, but he says, I don't think it'd do any good. So he said, if you wanted to go up and cut the hill down and stay on the old road, it's all right. But he said, I'm not going to give you the land. I could have just shot him right there. The old pup, because he never raised anything on that hill.
No, that old hill.
Sharp, my gosh, Jimmy. So,
Well, those were tough times, weren't they?
they were different times. But we was pretty lucky a lot of times.
Oh, yeah.
Lucky. When I got into the sheep business and got to let them out on the shares, that's when I started really making money, because I'd buy the share, raise the sheep, and then put them out on the shares, and I'd get half the lambs and half the wool, and then get the sheep back.
Well, did you have quite a few guys that would do that?
Yeah, I had over 1,000 head out at one time.
Oh, I'd forgotten
I
that.
forgot that. That was when it was down there. See, I haven't done much after there. Yeah, the worst deal I got was with Bruce Watts over to Tumba. He sold the lambs before I got there.
Oh, I see.
But I went into Morales and found out where he sold them, you know. There's the only sheep he had, so he finally paid me for them.
Let's see. Well, now, wasn't he some shirt-tail relationship?
Yeah, see, his wife was my cousin, full cousin.
Oh, because she was Aunt Liza's daughter. Yeah, right.
And they inherited the estate money, and he just went crazy and bought 2 big cars, you know.
Yeah.
Nice cars. Big, my golly, they're women. So, and she's now in the worst shape in the world. He's dead.
Yeah, I remember he
And
died.
she can't get up out of bed. She can't, without help and doing anything.
My God.
I talked to her last summer on the phone, and Alice talked to her, and Enid calls her quite often, because Enid knows her, and she's still in pretty good spirits. She has, see, they were down here once to visit us here in Florida.
Oh, yeah.
But all she wanted to do was to run to cemeteries. She had, every cemetery, she had some relations out here. So if you could...
I think she's bedfast now, and she's
Yeah.
blind,
I-
and
My golly.
So it's just too bad. And see, they had 2 kids, nicest looking kids. One of them died when she's 8 years old, the little girl, and the boy lived to about 20, I think.
Well, I remember them.
Yeah.
Bobby and
I don't
forget what the little girl.
That's with me. I've kind of forgot the little girl's name.
They both died young. Huh?
Died young, and just everything they done just went to pot. Now, Bruce worked in Morales a long time, retired from Morales, and then he just went fishing every day.
Well,
And you know, some people, when they retire, they want to fish.
yeah.
Somebody else, something else. So,
Well, why don't we take? We're back here and after lunch, feeling well fed. Same day, I put the date on.
yeah.
Fat and happy.
Saturday, January the 9th, in the afternoon, and it's cold here in Florida.
Oh, don't admit that.
Gonna rain.
You were going to tell us why or how you happened to come to Florida to start with,
Yeah.
or first time, or
That's been a long time ago. The first time we come to Florida was 1956. And before that, why we came, I was busy working and I was being affected with arthritis in my knees. And I'd go over to Tumba about every 10 days or 2 weeks and take a shot from Dr. Fox for my knees, of course, cortisone. And I just thought I could keep that up, but I knew that I was getting where I was going to have to use a cane for long. When he gave me that shot that particular day, I remember just as well as yesterday, he said, well, that's all I can give you, Mr. Horn. I said, why? He said, that's the limit, or it's liable to make your knees stiff. I said, my Lord Almighty, man, what will I do? Well, he said, you're going to have to do one or two things. Get you some crutches and a cane, or else go where it's warm. And it was along in February then, February 1956. Latter days, or the first days of February. I said, well, where is the best place to go? He said, these 2 states that's good to help arthritis. You know, he says there's so many kinds of arthritis. He says there's over 100 different kinds. So go to one state, and if that's not good, go to the other, and I hope it's one of them. I said, what's the states? He said, Arizona and Florida. Well, coming home, I got to thinking, golly, I'd always wanted to go to Florida. We'd heard of a place by the name of Winter Haven, Florida, that we'd watch on the radio show, as you call the breakfast show, and I just read in the paper where they announced they was going to put it on at the spring show, the Citrus Festival in Winter Haven, Florida. I said, we'll go there. So two bolts was going with us. We pulled out on the highway about 10 o'clock and the snow was knee deep and it was 10 below zero. And he said, where are we going in Florida? I said, well, just one place that I want to go is Winter Haven, Florida. He said, well, I've got a friend that lives in Tampa, Florida. If we get down there, why, we can stay free. And he was always thinking that. I said, that's a good thing. So we started out, of course, then you just went the back roads and got here any way you could. About 3 days later, while we was over in the East Coast, we went to hit down to Miami on A1A, which is a crooked road. It's still in existence, but stop line every 10 miles, maybe a little often. And we didn't like Miami at all. It was just too big of a crowd and too everything. We got a hotel. It was the noisiest thing. It would just roll us out of bed every little bit. And so the next day we started up through, they said to go up through the middle of the country on Highway 27. And so we come up to 27, and just before we got to Winter Haven, we saw the sign leading into Cypress Garden, and they told us it was right together. So we come in, and out where the Southeast Shopping Center is now is a little motel called Stay a While. Remember that just as well? So we stayed a while, and 2 or 3 days, and we traveled out from there, and we liked it better here than anywhere we'd been. So we contacted some people by the name of Chance. We saw they had a sign out to keep people. So I was going to come back in the summertime and buy something. We couldn't be gone long that shot. And but we hit the nicest weather. Oh, it was so hot. We hadn't brought any warm clothes. We had to buy shorts and BBDs and everything.
What month was that?
In February.
Oh, in February.
Oh, it was hot. We just couldn't believe there's that much difference. Of course, I got ahead of the story a little bit. As we come down, we stayed all night, the second or third night out at Macon, Georgia. And they had what they call a new hotel. It's just been redone. And they served the breakfast with it overnight. It cost $4 to stay all night there. Think of that. And you got your breakfast with it. Went down to breakfast, big long table, and they had the beautifulest flowers that big that they picked right out of their own yard. And I said to Alice and two balls, I said, well, I don't know what we'd go any farther for. This here's just as near heaven as I ever supposed I'd get. So we ate breakfast there, and after a while we looked around and decided to go ahead. The next night we stayed at St. Augustine, and I was sure that was heaven. So we went out and looked at houses. Man, I was ready to buy a house there right off the bat.
Yeah.
And the real estate fellow was very nice. He said, now let me tell you, generally when people just comes down from the north, they ought to look around a while, because you buy a house and then you'll be sick of it. So then we goes ahead down to Miami and comes back up. We liked Winter Haven, and then every time we go anywhere, we come back to Winter Haven and liked it better. So when we got ready to leave, we couldn't stay only 2 weeks. Well, we made arrangements with these Chances, and I was going to fly down and stay at their house and buy something.
Oh.
And had that all set up. We left, got home, just so doggone busy and running the office and the farms and so on. We didn't get away till we couldn't get away that we didn't think till it was getting fall, and then we give it up. And so we come down here and got here that year. We thought early, which was on Christmas Day. Was that right, Alice, or New Year? New Year's Day. I believe that was it. But so then we took out and looking, and that was when we bought the duplex right away. And then we didn't stay in it the first year. We stayed. I guess maybe we stayed with Mrs. Chance the first year, but we couldn't be here very long. And then we lived, had kept the duplex, and we fixed one side up real nice for us, and I had a place to store our personal things. When we'd go north, then we could rent that side. We'd rent both sides. And then when Mother, later on, Mother got to coming with us. She came 5 years with us. Why, the duplex wasn't big enough unless you used both sides. So I decided we just better go ahead and rent it out. We bought the house here 23 years ago. And of course that way, because she couldn't get in the bathtub, and that's why under the house that had a walk-in shower.
You bought this place 23 years. What
23
year?
years ago.
That would have been 1964.
Not
We moved in in
67.
December. We moved in December of 64.
64. The
Yeah.
Whitakers helped us move in.
Yeah.
And we didn't have a lot of furniture. We left most of it with them. And then the fellow that we bought the house of, he had arrangement with a wholesale furniture place, and you could Tampa, you could go one time, and you get this big discount. Well, I didn't know what furniture was worth, and I thought that's just a gag. So we just goes over in the car, and we saw how much cheaper things was. Tried to get them let us come back second time, we couldn't. But we hauled home. You can't remember both of these big red chairs, and both of these stand tables, both these lights. I don't know what all that is, unbelievable. Breakfast set, and 4 chairs there. So we just had things stacked everywhere. And why it is so cheap, we couldn't believe it. So then we got moved in, and of course, then we bought other things. And then I kept the duplex about, I reckon, 6, 7, 8 years after that.
Well, I remember visiting you over in the duplex.
Yeah.
Remember when we lived in Atlanta in those years?
Here you come to the duplex.
We'd come down.
Yeah.
Down there.
1970, so we owned it about 14 years, and I had it pretty well depreciated out on our income tax, and then we sold it for more than we give for it, and then you had to add it all back on.
Yeah.
That was
At least you got capital gains treatment on it
Yeah.
in those days. Nowadays, you don't even get that.
don't get that, that's for sure. But I thought that was awful. Of course, we bought the house, it was really worth the money. Should have bought 2 or 3. The First Federal had this house and 2 others here had just been built, and they had them and they wanted to sell them. And so I should have bought all 3 of them, and then we really had an income on the side. But we've kind of made a living, I guess. So that's about the story of how we come. My knees has got some.
Well, here we are, about ready to go to church. Here it's Sunday morning.
January the 10th.
Well.